Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this really inspiring day. I've heard so many great speeches and learned about so many amazing apps. So give yourselves a round of applause before we continue because this is such an amazing and inspiring day. My name is Rachelle Celebrezze. I'm the head of federal government affairs for Broadcom, which is one of the world's leading semiconductor design and software infrastructure companies. You heard a little bit about us earlier, so I won't go into that. And I want to introduce this next member of Congress because he is truly an inspiration for STEM education. He's someone who's long been a champion of STEM in Congress. Before entering public service, he spent over 2 decades as a physicist, contributing to major scientific advancements and publishing more than 50 peer-reviewed papers. Today, as the representative for Illinois' 11th Congressional District, he brings that same spirit of research and innovation to Congress as the only sitting member with a PhD in physics. He's a passionate advocate for STEM education, and we're thrilled to have him here today at the House of Code. Please join me with a warm welcome for Congressman Bill Foster.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I sometimes introduce myself as saying I represent 100% of the strategic reserve of physicists in the U.S. Congress. I've spent 25 years before getting into this crazy business, smashing protons and antiprotons together to make particles that have not been around since the Big Bang. And I was actually on the team that discovered what's called the top quark, the heaviest known form of matter, a single subatomic particle that weighs more than an atom of gold. So I did that. But before that, I actually started out in business. When I was 19 years old, my little brother and I started a business. We had the bright idea of using the newly invented microprocessor to control theater stage lights, which had never been done since the microprocessor hadn't existed. And so we went and got $500 from my parents, and we started out building our prototype in the basement. And then after a little while, we got kicked out of the basement because we were making too big a mess. So we moved up to my bedroom. And then when we got our first order, we moved into a little metal shed in a cornfield. And now the company we started is in a giant metal building in a cornfield with about 1,500 employees. And it makes about 2/3 of all the theater lighting equipment. And so when the lights go up on Broadway or, when, about 50% of touring rock and roll is our company's equipment. Or just, anyway, so it just, you can do incredible things when you have an idea that's never been had before. And that's why, I can see every one of you was just sitting there thinking about something new and seeing some initial success from that, winning your state regional competitions or your district competitions. I have to, before I forget, give a shout out to the winner from my state, the 11th District of Illinois, Shoshana Ora, the student at Bolingbrook High School who won for their Prep Shield app. And everyone in every one of the districts that you come from is very proud of what you've done. It's really neat to have this much sort of psychic energy. And it's it's interesting to think about where the future of all this is going with the onset of AI. I'm sure every one of you spends some fraction of your time thinking about AI. I still do a little bit of computer coding. Back when I was being a physicist, I actually designed and built 10 integrated circuits, computer chips. I'm very proud that every one of those chips worked the first time, which is not typical for newly designed computer chips. But and I also programmed neural networks back in the 1990s, back when when it was hopeless because the computers we had were 10,000 times slower than what you have in your cell phone today. And they weren't ready for prime time, but boy, they sure are now. The things that are happening in artificial intelligence are in the process of changing the world. And then that's why one of the reasons why it's so great to have you involved in all the technology. I don't know how many of you use like these coding assistants to help out with your coding. Any of you familiar with those? They say, okay, yeah. So they're, I've been using them for about the last couple of years. And a year ago, you sort of would maybe, well, 2 years ago, they were like autocomplete. You'd get halfway through writing a subroutine and it would see what you're doing and it would say, okay, I see what you're doing. It would close your loops and finish it. And then maybe a year ago, you could write the descriptive header at the top of your subroutine and all of a sudden, boom, the whole subroutine would appear doing what you had suggested it do. And now it is to the point where you can just describe the entire project and the packages you want to use. And you say, okay, and I want a web interface and I want, an app, and boom, it does it. And so there's the rate at which this technology is changing the universe is man. And I haven't even mentioned robotics, which are also going to really have their moment here in another couple of years. So when that happens, Congress is going to be overwhelmed at the rate of technological change, and we're going to have to depend on the next generations of experts to really guide us through this and figure out, what the world should look like, and then how do we get there. And that's one of the great things, all of your apps, most all of them, are designed to make the world a better place. And that's really what we should be doing with technology here. And I'm just so proud of everything every one of you have done here, because it's going to be really important to have people using technology to make the world a better place. Thank you all, and best of luck.